to order. So the first call of order is the roll call.
Dana Hollinger.
Here.
Margaret Brown.
Here.
Matthew Sehoff for John Chung.
Here.
Richard Costigan.
Here.
Priya Mathur.
Here.
Bill Slayton.
Here.
Ellen LaFaso for Betty Yee.
Here.
Okay, and now I'm going to turn the gavel over to Priya Mathur for the election.
Thank you. I will now entertain nominations for Chair of the Risk and Audit Committee, Mr. Slayton. Sorry, 1 minute. Gotcha.
Thank you. I nominate Dana Hollinger to be chair of this committee.
Terrific. A nomination has been entered for Dana Hollinger. Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Any further nominations? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to elect Dana Hollinger as chair by acclamation.
Moved by acclamation.
Moved by Mr. Slayton, seconded by Mr. Costigan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Ms.
Thank you,
Hollinger.
thank you, thank you. Okay. And now for elections of the vice chair, I call on Richard Costigan.
Congratulations, Madam Chair. At this time, I would like to nominate Bill Slayton as the Vice Chair of the Risk and Audit Committee.
Okay. Great. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Any other nominations? I move to,
I move that we elect Bill Slayton by acclamation as vice chair of the committee.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Bill Slayton is now the vice chair.
Now we'll take 5 minutes to.
We're going to take 5 minutes just to shift. Okay. The agenda is item 3, the executive report. I call on Marlene Timberlake Diadamo.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, Marlene Timberlake Diadamo, CalPERS team member. I'd like to say congratulations to our chair, Ms. Hollinger, and our vice chair, Mr. Slayton. I look forward to working with each of you during the course of the year. Today, we will review the Risk and Audit Committee delegation resolution, and we'll present the mid-year plans for enterprise compliance and enterprise risk management. Both mid-year plans will provide updates on activities completed in the first half of fiscal years 2017-18. The mid-year plan for enterprise risk management will focus on the continued facilitation of the asset liability management cycle and other risk management efforts. The enterprise compliance plan will provide updates on ethics policy and delegation management, the embedded compliance program, and communication and education. The next Risk and Audit Committee meeting is scheduled for June 19th, 2018, and includes the annual plans for enterprise risk management, enterprise compliance, and the Office of Audit Services, the independent auditor's annual plan, and the semi-annual enterprise risk management framework review. Thank you, Madam Chair. This concludes my report. I would be happy to take questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to item 4. This is a consent item for the approval of the November 13th, 2017 Risk and Audit Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? Okay, so motion made by Costigan, seconded by Mather. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion approved. Okay, items 5A through F are consent items. Do I have any questions? Seeing no questions, we're going to move on to item 6. And Ms. Diabamo, it's review of the Risk and Audit Committee delegation. Do we have any questions?
So just for the purposes of the new members to the committee, this is an annual item that we do, and it basically is an affirmation of the delegation to this committee. This is an annual process, as I mentioned, and it is pretty self-explanatory. We're not actually recommending any changes this year, so the delegations that's in your packets are clean delegations.
Okay, so motion made by Mather, seconded by Costigan. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Approved. And item 7 is an information item. Forrest Grimes on the Enterprise Risk Management 2017-2018 Mid-Year Plan Update.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. Forrest Grimes, CalPERS team. I'm joined by Melissa Azevedo. Oh, sorry.
It's on.
I'm joined by Melissa Azevedo, your Assistant Division Chief of Enterprise Risk Management. She's been a primary architect of the framework that you've been seeing, and I thought that you would like to hear from her directly. This is a mid-year update of progress to date on our work plan that you approved in June 2017. The team created a dashboard showing the status of each deliverable that can be viewed on page 52 of your board books. With that, I will pause and encourage your questions or comments on any of the specific projects we are working on.
Mr. Costigan?
I just want to thank you. Just being new to the committee, I find getting caught up on the information, and I like the dashboard. Actually, like to see the dashboard all green. But just to channel a former member, Mr. Jelinczyk, what's on here that what's not on here that I should know?
Well, I
And
think
the answer can be everything's on the form.
Mr. Costigan, everything, truly, all of the deliverables. You need to move it up. Move it up? I'm sorry. All of the deliverables on the work plan that you approved last June are truly on there. I think probably the biggest challenge, I will defer to Melissa just to update you briefly, and I think it's really development and alignment of key risk indicators. We're calling those key risk measures, but that's the next heavy lift. We're going to need your help. There's going to be some committee and board decision-making associated with that so that we can make sure we're operating within risk appetite. But that's the one I would point you to, Mr. Costigan.
So, Mr. Grimes, just very quickly on that one, in the comments I see where it says completed, what are we looking as a completion date?
Fiscal year end.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hollinger.
You're welcome. Ms. Mather?
Yeah, well, it is pretty stunning how far we've come, actually. I mean, I'm thinking back to when we started talking materially about risk management. It's like 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago, and the evolution of our risk management approach in the maturation of it is really stunning. So I want to thank you and your team for sort of elevating the way we approach risk management and being so systematic about it. And just the fact that there are so many 100% completions on here is also really an accomplishment. I agree with you about the key risk indicators. That's going to be, as you say, a heavy lift. And I'm certainly committed to helping work through that with you, as I'm sure the entire committee is and the board.
do have one question. The established baseline for the employee survey, you have already established the baseline, and that was this year, and then next year is when we'll start evaluating against that or compare benchmarking
Yeah, let me
to that?
clarify that for you, because the employee survey actually closes tomorrow. We're in the process of it right now. I think what you're referring to is the stakeholder survey, so we truly do have a baseline that was established that last year.
I see.
And so we'll be analyzing this year for the first time to see, how we've done.
Okay, so the 50% complete on the establish the baseline for the employee survey, it's 50% just because it hasn't closed yet.
That's correct.
For
It
engineer.
closes tomorrow, then we will have, we'll truly have the baseline, that we can establish a benchmark from.
Okay, so as of tomorrow, or as of the time that you've been able to review the results, you'll be at 100% on that?
Yes.
Okay. Terrific. Okay, well, thank you. That helps.
Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, and I want to echo Ms. Mather's sentiments regarding staff and seeing all the 100% and the green light, so thank you. Moving on to item 8.
Well, can I add
Oh,
one?
I'm sorry.
One thing, I'm
Sure.
sorry. I was hoping that if you turn to page 53, if I could get you to look at that board book page.
Sure.
I really wanted to give Melissa a quick chance to just update you
Absolutely.
on the next steps, because I think it will be helpful to set some expectations going into the into now to the end of the fiscal year. So, Melissa?
Thank you, Forrest. I actually want to go into depth a little bit about
Sure.
the risk metrics. So, building on the risk appetite statements that the committee approved in June of last year, the team is working collaboratively with the senior leaders in the program areas to develop risk measures to present to you in June of 18. The measures will be aligned to the CalPERS strategy map and the enterprise risks, and we will title them strategic risk measures so that they align to the strategic measures. The team is currently partnering with the enterprise strategy management team to evaluate the current metrics and coordinate future reporting. In June, we will present these recommended strategic risk measures to you with suggested targets and thresholds using the risk statements and a reporting structure and dashboards. With that, I will pause to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have to get the clicker.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Diadamo, item 8, enterprise compliance, the 2017-2018 mid-year plan update.
Okay. So this item is actually pages 54 through 70 in Diligent, and we also have it up here. So this item is an annual item. We come to you every year at this time to do a mid-year, essentially a status check for where we are with respect to our 5-year compliance plan. We will be coming to you in June with the actual plan for the 2018-19 year. So this is truly a mid-year update. Moving to page 4, which is slide 59 for you. This is a slide that should be very familiar. You've seen it before. The important and salient point here to note really is that we are essentially halfway through the 5-year plan, and we're in year 3 now. And so what we are doing is we're looking to help finish building things, implementing, and in fact, this next slide shows you where we are with respect to the 4 areas that we've identified as focus areas for 2017-18. Those 4 areas are the enterprise ethics programs, policy and delegation management, compliance monitoring and oversight, and communication, education, and reporting. And so what we've done here on this slide 60, I'm trying to go back and forth between the paper and the digital, but what we've done here is basically identified for you where we were and where we are. And so as we've gone through the course of the years, we've made some adjustments. What you see in the focused areas, the middle column or the second column, is a list of the items that we're looking to get through. And then what we've done in the next subsequent pages, 8 or 9 pages, is really did a review of sort of each of the 4 areas, looking at the focus areas and the items that we'd identified as focus areas, and then the subsequent page after that, talking about the program highlights for that particular focus area. So we did conflicts of interest. In terms of the ethics program, it consisted of activities around conflicts of interest, ethics laws and policies, and the ethics helpline management. And then the next page would tell you for the status from July through December of 2017, what were the specific activities that we completed as it related to each of those functional areas. I just thought it might be helpful to just sort of explain how to read it, because it is a lot of pages and a lot of material. And then enterprise compliance plan for policies and for delegations, we looked at delegation management, policy management, and then highlights for that particular area. I think what I would do is highlight just here for page 12 is a new type of reporting, and this is in addition to our reporting, which this is reporting that's been provided to us by our embedded compliance liaisons. So this year we've spent time really helping to work with them and integrating their work into our work, so that what you're seeing is sort of an elevated view of what's being done. And so on page 12, which is 67 of your diligent, is basically the information that they've essentially brought up to us to be reported to you. So this is an example of some of the focus area work that we're doing around communication and reporting. So I think at this point, I would ask if anyone has any questions as it relates to the material.
Yes. Ms. Mather?
Thank you. Well, I think compliance is another area where we've made great strides over the last several years, and particularly embedding it within the program areas or the functional areas. But let me ask you, where does establishing a culture of compliance, where is that in this plan, and how does that manifest?
So the culture is, it's really part of, it's part of a lot of things that we do. It's hard to say it's one thing, but we do conflicts of interest around ethics. We do a lot of communication activities. We do a lot of outreach, actually, and training in terms of ethical culture activities that we do enterprise-wide. We have done guidelines that we have created where we go out and we actually speak about the different culture, our codes of our code, and we talk about individual items regarding our code and things like that. So the culture itself, it's not just one particular thing. It's sort of, embedded, if you will, or integrated into a lot of the work that we do, because honestly, the culture really underpins sort of what we do and who we are. So it's a foundational item, and it's something that appears in a lot of the work that we do.
And how would we assess progress in terms of really establishing this culture of compliance? I mean, I think CalPERS is generally, pretty good. People are trying to do the right thing as a general rule. But I think there are certain sort of key questions that people need to be asking themselves in order to ensure that they're really compliance-minded. Same thing with risk too, actually, to ensure they're risk-minded. How are you assessing progress in that regard?
So one of the things that we do is we actually are very visible. Mm-hmm. We actually have built relationships with a lot of the divisions and particularly with the compliance liaisons. We have helped them to build out what they want to look at and how they want to interact as the folks that are really on the ground level as it relates to our team members. And so for us, the culture looks like, and it's something that is not built in one 1 year or even a 6-month period. It is evidenced through the interactions that you have with individuals. It's evidenced in the relationships that you build with them. It's evidenced in a lot of the way that you work with folks, so that the culture for us is where we are the first people or the second people besides the program compliance folks that get called when an issue comes up, as opposed to having to, being the last person. So for me, it's really about the visibility and the relationship and being able to communicate very, effortlessly, which is, to me, is a sign of a culture that is developing and improving.
Terrific, thank you.
Sure.
I had a quick question, just,
I think Cammie wanted to
Oh, I'm
respond
sorry.
to.
Can I just add to that, Cammie Niebank, CalPERS team member? So in addition, we're also doing some metrics. So we're partnering with the risk team, and we are partnering on that same survey. So our survey results are going to be in there. So that'll give us a baseline of where the organization is as far as maturity. And then also, as one of the key performance indicators, we have done an outside assessment to assess our maturity of our overall compliance program. So more information on that will come through the strategic planning team and efforts in future months. But we're doing that to kind of assess where we are internally based on some of the things that we have been doing, as well as where do we land against our peers out there in the industry. And then we also have the stakeholder assessment as well, which will kind of be able to give us a baseline and maturity on how they see us in our efforts in managing compliance for the organization.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, my question actually had to do, I was curious if in terms of the ethic hotline, like if you ever see in particular, like over time, like a decrease in issues, or there are trends of certain things coming up?
So we actually report on the ethics helpline every quarter. We are tracking the types of calls, the
Right.
categories of issues that are coming to us. We typically, I don't know, I would say maybe 30. I'm just thinking about roughly about 30 is about what we get per month, and that's pretty typical. And then the category is the retirement abuse and fraud one.
Okay.
It's one that's consistently, it makes up about 60 to 65% of the calls that we get.
Got it. Okay. Seeing no other questions, are you finished?
I am.
You are. Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay. We're 9, summary of committee direction.
I took no direction.
Yeah, I didn't take. Okay.
Is that not right?
Yeah, no.
There was no direction. I'm
No
sorry. There was no
direction.
direction.
Okay.
I'll take it if you give it, but there was no direction. How about that?
Okay, and I don't have a list of any public comments, so then, would anyone like to comment? No, okay. So public session is officially closed. Adjourned. And we're going to move into closed session, so anyone that has to leave the auditorium.
Thank you. Good night.
Right.